Where are you off to, Martha?
Costa Rica.
I'll find you, Martha. I'm James Matthews.
I'm Martha Kelner.
And I'm Mark Stone.
And this is day 38 of Trump 100. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is coming to the White House on Friday. You know him. He's the man Donald Trump called a dictator.
And I've been here at the White House all day at Karoline Leavitt's press briefing. She is, of course, Donald Trump's press secretary, and she's been talking about Doge and the brutal job cuts that Elon Musk is making across government.
And Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth visits the detention camp in Guantanamo Bay. We'll discuss if Trump's deportation policy show is going to plan.
So just before we started recording, literally in the last few minutes, some breaking news. Volodymyr Zelensky is coming to town to meet President Trump here at the White House on Friday.
It means, presumably, Mark, that this minerals deal, this long-awaited deal, is close to being signed, yeah?
Yeah, and it also can only mean that our week is going to get even busier because Thursday, of course, is Keir Starmer's day here at the White House. And I guess that kind of, in a way, reframes some of Keir Starmer's visit because I think, as you say, James, the only reason that Zelensky will be coming here on Friday is because the minerals deal that we've been talking about over the course of the past few days is close to being done.
We're wondering about the awkwardness of a meeting between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump, but surely the real awkward moment is going to come when Zelensky, a man who Donald Trump called a dictator just a matter of days ago, is in the same room as him.
Yeah, the dictator meets the Donald. Actually, I think, Martha, I think the name-calling will be the least of Zelensky's worries. What will cloud the atmosphere, I think, is what Ukraine gets from this deal that he's signing up for. What are the hard security guarantees? We don't know. What's in it financially for Ukraine in the long term? We don't know that either. And there is also the small matter of Vladimir Putin in the wings.
This minerals deal seems like it's going to be at the heart of that meeting. There's reporting from Axios News in the United States. They say that President Zelensky managed to negotiate a final draft of this deal that removed a US demand to have rights to $500 billion in future revenue from the land, but also that there'll be no specific security guarantees included within it.
Yeah, that's it. That's the key. What security guarantees does Ukraine get out of this? And what does Europe get out of this? I guess the concern is the Trump White House will be spinning all this. And you can bet Karoline Leavitt, press secretary, will be out in a couple of days saying, look, aren't we incredible? Look what we've managed to do. We've got Ukraine here. We're signing these deals. Isn't this amazing? Or is it that everyone is being sucked into the Trump vortex so quickly that they just don't quite know what they're signing up to? And that as we've said before, what Trump is after, apart from the Nobel Peace Prize, is short-term wins. He wants to be able to say, perhaps at the end of the 100 days, look what I've done. This, Middle East peace, Ukraine peace, all of this. He wants to be able to say he's done that. Fine, he might be able to do that. But what does it look like? What does the world look like in a year's time, 5 years' time? Short-term gains, long-term danger, maybe.
Short-termism. That's what this is all about. For Trump, yes, as you say, Mark, but also for the allies and for Ukraine. They're in a situation where right now they have to squeeze the best they possibly can, the most secure deal that they can get from Donald Trump. Everything is up in the air. And I think Ukraine and European allies, Starmer, when he comes here, is just trying to reach some firm ground from which they can work towards the kind of security they're after.
Let's move on to defense spending. Obviously linked to all of this, Keir Starmer needed to come here to Washington with a deliverable, with something that he can say to Donald Trump. Look, we are doing this. We are spending more on defense. And so he did, because he's announced that he will boost defense spending to 2.5% of GDP. That seems to be a direct consequence of Trump's recent message to Europe. The president has been calling on NATO allies to increase their spending to 5% of national income on defense, saying that the EU could no longer rely on American support. And that was effectively, it felt to me like the breaking down of a transatlantic alliance that's gone back so many years. And the consequence in Westminster today seemed to be Keir Starmer saying, fine, we are going to spend more.
Yeah, you mentioned this there, Mark, but US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth posted on X that he'd been speaking on the phone to his UK counterpart, John Healey, who confirmed that increase and said 2.5% is just the start. A strong step from an enduring partner is what he wrote to his followers.
Yeah, I think, Martha, that helps to lay the ground for Thursday's White House visit, doesn't it, for Starmer? Thursday and Friday, big dates in the diary. We'll be all over it on Trump 100. But tell me, Martha, for now, you mentioned Pete Hegseth, US Defense Secretary. Let's talk about him because he's been busy, yeah?
Yeah, he's been clocking up the air miles, travelling to the US Navy base at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba to inspect the administration's migrant operations there. Now, Team Trump made this big policy show of moving deportees to Guantanamo Bay, saying it would send the worst of the worst migrants there to hold them in a detention facility, actually removing people from US soil, flying them to a US facility abroad. And my concern would be the feasibility to house so many migrants humanely. And I know that concern is shared by Carol Rosenberg of the New York Times. Carol's been to Guantanamo more than any other journalist. She's absolutely prolific on the subject. I spoke to her about that.
And I have to look there.
Yeah, that's perfect. She looked great. How many times in the past couple of decades have you been there? How many days have you spent there?
I stopped counting at 1,000 nights about a decade ago. So many, 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 many nights. I went down first time in 99, and I've been going to ever since. It's a small American community in Southeast Cuba until this order from the president with 4,200 residents. It has children, school children of sailors who are based there. It has soldiers on temporary duty and local workers from the Jamaica and the Philippines. And so for a small 45 square mile base of 4,000 people to absorb 30,000 migrants who the administration wants to deport, so they and who have been characterized in many ways as invaders. The plan that I know that they're implementing, taken them to an existing prison building that until recently held suspects from Al-Qaeda, wartime prisoners who had been taken from Afghanistan or Pakistan. But the numbers just seem astronomical. And then this morning, within an hour of Pete Hegseth arriving, another plane from Texas arrived with some more migrants. We don't have the number yet, but nothing, again, of the magnitude of 30,000 humans.
Carol, Pete Hegseth has called Guantanamo Bay now the front lines of the war on the southern border. What does he mean by that? And what do you think he's been doing during his visit there?
He spent a very formative year there as a lieutenant in the Army when his first deployment in 2004 and 2005 with a small infantry unit on the outskirts of the detention center. And I think he has very fond memories of that. He had lunch with a mixed group of soldiers, Marines, sailors, and civilian employees of the Department of Homeland Security, and he called them warriors. I guess, making it clear that he thinks whatever mission happens at Guantanamo Bay is warfare.
Do you worry about the threat to independent journalism on Guantanamo Bay?
I am concerned at the lack of timely information. I am not 100% convinced they will ever let anyone see the migrant operations, that they will only, and have only with one exception, or now two exceptions, done their imagery through military handout photos. But what I'm most concerned about is timely information. Who's there? How many people are there? What is the capacity? How are they doing this? And frankly, no one's willing to talk about the cost of this.
Interesting stuff, Martha. It was mentioned in the press briefing we heard just a little earlier from Trump's press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. She was pressed by a journalist on the conditions that migrants are facing in the camp. And she said this: These are criminals we're talking about. Don't forget that. Mark, you were at that press briefing. What else did Karoline Leavitt have to say?
Well, I think that was probably the best question, the hardest question for her, because the treatment of those that have been taken to Guantanamo Bay, it has been widely reported. So it was good to see her being pushed on that. It was another very overcrowded room. I bought a stepladder because the only way. Well, I'm quite short, James, as you know, but maybe your height. But you do need you do need a stepladder because then you can raise yourself at least a foot. And if you're at the back or at the side, it makes all the difference. Although it didn't this time because, again, I didn't get any questions. But
Mark, I'm thinking of them, looking out into the press pack, seeing you standing 7 feet 2 inches tall, and thinking, what do they feed them in Cheltenham?
Oh, dear.
And even with your new haircut, no question.
Anyway, most notable things about the press conference. The first, I think, was that over the next day at the first cabinet meeting of Donald Trump's second term, one Elon Musk will be attending. He is not an official member of the cabinet, but as what looks like to be the co-president, he will be there, which means, in other words, an unelected billionaire with no ministerial portfolio will be inside the top circle of this meeting.
Just as a reminder, the latest on Doge over the weekend, federal government employees got that email, now infamous email, which was titled, "What did you do last week?" That was a demand from Elon Musk's Doge department, proving their productivity in his mind. And if they didn't reply, he said that would be taken as a resignation. And there's been a huge amount of fallout from this.
The Doge story, Martha, is one that you've been looking at in the past few weeks.
I've been speaking to a lot of government employees who have either been fired as a result of these Doge cuts or are considering their own positions because of the way their workplace has changed over the past few weeks. And almost all of them say that they're not against government reform, that they're certainly not against weeding out waste, fraud and abuse, but they wholly disagree with the way that this is being done. They say getting rid of departments wholesale is not the way to do it. And in fact, the devil is in the detail here. And this is something that has to be done day by day over a course of months and years. It's not something that should happen in the course of a few days.
Yeah, she was also asked about the fact that they want to change the rules. They want to rip up what's known as the White House Correspondents Association, which decides who gets to be in the group of journalists who get to follow the president around. The White House doesn't like that because the people in the press pool, so they believe, are the legacy media, are not those that are towing the line, are those that are critical of the administration. And so they say that they're going to make the rules now. I'm sure you've got a view or two about that, James.
Well, I can tell you the White House Correspondents Association does. They've issued a statement saying this move tears at the independence of a free press in the United States. It suggests the government will choose the journalists who cover the president. In a free country, leaders must not be able to choose their own press corps. We've probably all been in a situation where a politician had said something, you've written it down, it's going to be published, and they say, I can't print that. Can I just have a look at that comment? Oh, let me rework that for you. Mm-hmm. As a journalist, you say, no chance. You said it. That's what goes out. I wonder, when they're selecting journalists, what happens in a situation like that and similar circumstances? That's the worry.
Mm-hmm. It's the beginning of a slippery slope, I think.
Okay, that's it for today. Before we go, a reminder to send us your questions for this weekend's question and answer episode.
You can email us on trump100@sky.uk. And if you don't already, please do follow Trump 100 wherever you're listening.
Thanks for joining us for day 38 of Trump 100. See you tomorrow for day 39, the day Keir Starmer meets Donald Trump.
See you then. Have a good time, Martha. Good holiday.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday,
Thanks.
Martha.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.